Let's get it. It is an absolutely gorgeous day here in the Carolinas, and we're so glad to see it as always. We do hope everyone is well as always, and that you're able to get out and enjoy this day like we are. I do have my wife with me today. Say hello, baby.
Hi, shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. As this is our day of worship, the one set aside the Most High made for us to enjoy and be glad with Him as all days. But this is the one that He set aside for us to spend time with Him. Praise the Most High. We do have a great idea today. And as always, I hope everyone is well if I didn't say it. And that you're able to enjoy this beautiful day. Hopefully you have some nice weather like we do in your neck of the woods. We've had nice weather all day. What's your excuse for running from the fight? And our scripts are going to be, my wife's going to read over our scripts.
Acts 17 and 28, and it says, "For in him we live and move and have our being, as certain also of your own poets have said. For we are also his offspring, children, just as Yahusha being the first of many."
And that was a note there, just as Yahusha being the first of many.
Okay. Romans 8 and 29. "And he has always known who his chosen ones would be. He had decided to let them become like his own son, so that his son would be the first of many children."
And we spoke on this, if not the prior thought, the one before that, and how we choose ourselves. See, the Most High has chosen us all, but He had an idea where He knows who's going to be obedient and not. But the text says that if we love Him, we keep His commandments. So basically saying He's going to choose the ones that does what He's telling or asking them to do.
Right. So the next one, Saul confirmed Yahusha's statement in John 14 and 12 when he said that we would do even greater works than he did because he was going back to our Yah.
Right.
Hallelujah.
And see, this is showing us not only who we are, but what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing the works of the Most High. So that means we're going to be obediently following Him and His will for our lives. And now we're going to read over our notes. You want to read the notes?
Oh, sure. Start here? Okay. As I have been saying of late, that we can't lose because all things are working together for our good, because we love Him by obeying Him, and therefore we are called with purpose.
Just as I just said.
Don't get me wrong, I don't always feel this way, having this great confidence. It took time for the Most High to train me on the milk of His word and then the meat, which I'm still learning daily. However, we have history. I used to feel self-conscious about having that major stroke, open heart surgery, leg surgery, and finally 3 amputated toes. I felt less than a man until one day the Most High reminded me that it made me more than a man because I could no longer run from any fight. I had to turn, face it, and fight. He was speaking about a physical situation to prove a spiritual point. We all have scrapes in our lives that we don't want to turn, face, and fight, but we must stop running. Of course, just as the Most High was to me, I'm speaking of the spiritual and mental battles that go on in our hearts and minds. We all have skeletons in our closets that need not only cleaning out, but closely examined to get an understanding of what happened and why it had the effect it has caused. Trauma paralyzes individuals, making them incapable of movement and temporarily incapacitated, deprived of strength or power. I bring this up and out today because of a teacher I heard speaking about this great awakening of our people. He said that most of the hot button topics have been or are being addressed, but not the one of our mental health, and in some cases, our spiritual health. This same teacher recently spoke on our people regaining our power and becoming the rulers we are. He said that we may be the generation that sees the Most High's grand deliverance of his people worldwide, returning us back into our land. However, he didn't think we were ready to be the rulers of the world yet. He said that our generation needed to do all we could to empower the next to be that one, to be the one that rules. By facing our mental and spiritual issues, we will not cripple the next generation before they even began to walk, is what I took from his thoughts. This reminds me of a verse in a song I wrote a while back that said, "What goes up must come down."
Let me say that.
Yes.
What goes up must come down. You're smiling now, but you're aware of frown. You see, what you do comes back to you. It's a fact of life. I didn't make the rules.
So, just as our people suffers from the trauma of slavery, it's going to take a gradual healing of each individual and in a whole before we're actually whole again.
Read that again.
So just as our people suffered or suffers from the trauma of slavery, it's going to take a gradual healing of each individual on a whole before we are actually whole again.
And I want her to read that again because that's pretty much the gist of our thought for today, healing. And it's going to take us individually to face the fight that we have within ourselves before we can become a whole people as a whole nation, or people as a whole people striving and going forth together as one body.
And like you said, not just mentally, but spiritually as well.
Exactly.
The process our people being taken into slavery and where we all are today, the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade, didn't happen overnight, nor will us coming out on the other side whole. The healing process will take time. The two scripts that came to mind is Genesis 8 and 22. While the earth remains, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease.
Let me read that part again, that first part of that script. Read it like that.
While the earth remains seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night shall not cease.
And I wanted her to bring that back up because I think we misread that text a lot of times as saying seed time and harvest, but it's seed, time, and then harvest. Because once you plant a seed, you have to give it time to grow before you harvest it.
Absolutely. So everything that is a thing takes a seed being planted, then it takes time to grow, then it can be harvested. It's the same thing. It's the same with the word of Yah that's planted in our hearts. We then plant it into the universe just as he did, by speaking it out loud. Then we water that seed by praise and continual faith, by saying we have what we say according to Yah's word and will for our lives.
And I wrote that also because a lot of times in this prosperity doctrine teaching, we think we could just say we have what we say, we have what we say. Anytime we want something, we could just say it, go to Yah's bank and say, here, cash this check, thank you very much. See you the next time I need you. But no, it's according to his will and his desire for our lives. See his timing, just like she said. A lot of times we want the house, the car, the friends, the lifestyle, before the Most High is ready to present it to us, because we're not ready yet. We need to spend that time with him, being developed into the individuals that can handle them type things.
Right. Finally, we reap the harvest as Isaac did. Genesis 26:12. Isaac planted crops in the land, and the same year reaped 100-fold, because the Most High blessed him. The second script that came to mind is 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people, which are called by my name, his offspring, we just saw in Acts 17:28, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land.
So that's telling us something about the Most High. He's very picky on who he listens to. See, this text is telling us he's not listening to a sinner's prayer. He's saying, if you turn from your wicked ways and pray, then I'll listen to you. But I'm not listening to anything you have to say, and I'm definitely not going to heal your needed healing land until you repent, which means turn away from your wickedness. And then pray to me and ask me to help you get on to the next level in your life.
Hallelujah. We're no doctors, but we do understand the importance of turning and facing our challenges and fighting with the tools we have been afforded by our wonderful Creator. The most important tool, weapon we have to fight with is His Word in our mouths, and Him backing up each and every one we speak in faith. There is life and wisdom in His words for whatever the situation or fight we face. Even those past traumas we thought we were over or never really knew we suffered from. This is the main issue we have in our community. We feel a certain type of way about a thing, but we don't seek the help we need to get over it. We're strong believers in taking it to Dr. Yah in faith. That's whatever we're self-conscious about. He always gives us a prescription and His wisdom in tow, which brings healing and deliverance every time.
Ooh, read that one again.
He always gives a prescription and His wisdom in tow, which brings healing and deliverance every time. The prescription is His word, of course, and His wisdom is what steps we need to take. Anytime we take an issue to the Most High in faith, He's going to want to see our faith in action by doing only what He says to do afterwards. First things first, we as a people have a major issue that our enslavers capitalized on. This is the one of disobedience. Disobedience is breaking our covenant with our Abba Yah. Was the reason we were kicked out of the house, our land, and only obedience, keeping the covenant, will get us back in the house. Deuteronomy 28:64 and 65 explains our plight to the T. He'll scatter you to the four winds from one end of the earth to the other. We have this. You'll worship all kinds of other gods, gods neither you nor your parents ever heard of. Wood, the cross of Christianity. Stone, the Kaaba, black stone of Islam.
Let's hear that again, because that is one of our biggest issues. What did that one say about the wood?
Okay, it says gods neither you nor your parents ever heard of. Wood.
So that's saying that we didn't worship no cross. Matter of fact, Yahusha wasn't even hung on the cross. He was hung on a tree, on a stake. And then what else?
The Kaaba, the black stone of Islam.
The Kaaba stone. See, these are the two religions that's most prevalent in our community. Christianity and Islam. And the Most High is basically telling us a long time ago that we would serve these gods. or being wrapped up and tied and locked into these religions, thinking we serving him, but he's saying, no, that's not of me.
And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest.
Who is that? Who is that?
The true state of our people.
That is us. Like she said, the true state of our people. That's us.
But our Elohim shall give thee there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind.
No comment. No need.
But you know, there has to be a big but in the picture. Somewhere when dealing with our gracious Elohim.
That's right.
The same way a parent kicks out a hard-headed child who thinks they are grown until they have to face the real world for a season. On their return home, they have stories of how mean the world really is and of the traumas they had to suffer, like contemplating eating pig slop, a messy, wet mix of various leftovers, as one definition puts it. And the reference for that is Luke 15. True indeed, we as a people, Yasharel, have settled for the leftovers of the nations, pig slop, by seeking after their god, Hasatan, and following their culture, which has left us all traumatized and needing the Savior's loving hand of healing to remove our issue on a whole and individually so we can turn, face, and fight.
And let me say one thing. I just wanted to re-emphasize that point that we wrote in that, as far as we've turned to the God of this world, who is Hasatan. And what we mean by that is, it's just like what Yahusha said. We're blinded. Hasatan has blinded folks from seeing the true light of the living gospel. So he said the God of this world, Hasatan. So that lets you know who the God of this world is. It's not the Most High. Yes, he controls everything, but Hasatan has control of it for a very short time since he deceived Adam and Eve, our forefathers.
Yes. Family, what we've learned is that it's the person in the mirror looking back at us most of the time that we have an issue with, which is a whole nother thought on its own. However, at the very core of our second problem that's prevalent in our community, the blame game. It's always somebody else's fault for why we are in the situation we are in. However, individually as well as a people, we must, as we said before, turn, face, and even fight the person in the mirror looking back at us. With that said, the plot thickens with knowledge as always, because as the text says in Hosea 4:6, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, because thou hast rejected knowledge. I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy Elohim. I will also forget thy children. We have seen this perpetual rejection for the last 400 years, but now our Abba Yah says, your time is served. Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and ye shall find rest unto your souls. This is Matthews 11:28-29. So family, as we were saying, with knowledge comes life. I know one doctor who called our issue post-traumatic slave syndrome. I can hear folks saying now that I don't have any issues. I'm healed by the stripes and delivered by the blood of Yahusha. However, as true as it is for us all, his healing touch must be applied to the broken and dead issue. Two more scripts come to mind, the prophecy of the dead dry bones found in Ezekiel 37, 1 through 14. And the story of the lady with the issue of blood. Since we all know by now that the dry bones is us, folks. Is us, folks. Yasharel being dead after being scattered into the great valley, the world for 400 years. Now the wind is in the Ruach HaKodesh, awakening our people.
Now the wind, who is the Ruach HaKodesh.
Okay, awakening our people and bringing us together as one huge army. Together is the key. Just as each body part came together forming each individual body, we too must become whole by the transforming power of Yahusha, by Yahusha HaMashiach. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. The woman with the issue of blood sought out help for her problem because she first figured out that she had a major issue that man's hands couldn't solve. So she took it to Dr. Yah in prayer and followed his orders, who led her to Yahusha, the fulfiller of her prescription. And by the leading of the Ruach HaKodesh, she did just as he said and was healed. We too must take our every need and issue to our Abba in prayer, and just as Yahusha said, doing only what he tells us to do. Then we too will not only turn, face, and fight our issues, but we will win every time.
And we do have some words that we want you to ponder over, asking yourself the hard questions in order to seek the right answers. And it's one of self-conscious.
Having knowledge of one's own existence, especially the knowledge of oneself as a conscious being. Trauma. A traumatic event involves a single experience or enduring repeated or multiple experiences that completely overwhelm the individual's ability to cope or integrate the ideas and emotions involved in that experience.
And also I want to add, with this self-consciousness, or being self-conscious, that's usually spoken in a negative sense. Like you're self-conscious of being overweight, like I am a bit right now.
No, you're not.
But self-conscious of smiling because your teeth aren't all the way fixed, or self-conscious of your hair because you don't have a haircut, or self-conscious about the issues that we're speaking on now. A major trauma may have happened in your life. And as we know, a major trauma has happened to all of us, like we said in the notes, as far as being descendants of the transatlantic slave trade. And as the good doctor said in her book, we have post-traumatic slave syndrome. And a lot of us don't know it, or we don't know how to cope with it. And I'm a big believer, like I said in the notes, or we said in the notes, of taking everything to the Most High in prayer and doing what he tell you to do. See, the Most High may direct you to some help. He may direct you to a doctor to speak to, a good Hebrew doctor, that is. But okay.
And then I also wanted to add self-consciousness. Also, particularly in women, we see all these images on what we should look like. And as descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we are people of our own. We are beautiful people of our own. So we set the standard.
Sure. And we would notice how everybody follows us as a people. We set the trends. Everything we say, people want to say it afterwards and basically take it as their own. Mm-hmm. Just like I heard Moray Harris say, I think it was last week, how people would take and watch your YouTube channel and study you for a week or two when you first come out with something. And then the next 2 weeks after that, they're doing it themselves, saying it's theirs, as though they created what you are doing.
Copycatting.
Copycatting. the Most High's people. And it's all good because that's how it's going to be, because we are the head and not the tail. We are the standard. But now it's time to change the standard through healing. Now I would like to bring my wife in on a professional level. I'm going to let her introduce herself and who she is, and we're going to ask her a few questions on this idea.
Hi, I'm Trina Holloway, and this is my husband. So that's it.
And what do you do for a living? You don't have to say who you work for.
Oh, I work with families that have youth. Well, I'll say this. I have lived experiences with having sons that had behavior issues and mental health difficulties. So in turn, now I work in that capacity to help other families and the youth to be able to manage their lives and become self-sufficient, build confidence to be able to manage their own crises and any challenges they may have.
Well said. So like I said, she's experienced in this field. And Ms. Holloway, in your experience and in your very own opinion, how does trauma and self-consciousness affect most youth as well as adults in our community?
That's a loaded question. I'll speak to the trauma piece first. And as you mentioned, because of our history as brown people, living in this beast system, we've experienced trauma from conception because our parents have experienced it, our great-grandparents have experienced it, and that is something that is in our history. And I think that even now, in today's world, when you're in a community that is riddled with domestic violence, substance use, you hear ambulance, police, you go to school and you're treated a certain type of way, I think that in itself is compacting the trauma that has already been experienced, and that is a part of, for lack of a better term, part of our makeup, part of our very being. And like you said, until we become conscious of those effects that it has on us, I don't think that we will be able to change. There has to be a self-evaluation, a repentance, a forgiveness, a turning back to the Most High in order for us to be able to identify with the true people that we are in order to rid ourselves of that.
Okay, and she already went through a few of my questions with that statement, but we're going to ask them anyway. Also, in your own personal opinion, do you think that most of these issues can only be detected before the fact? Do you think that most of these issues can be detected before the fact, or a major blow, or showing out, which is actually a form of crying out for help in my own understanding? So I'm asking, do you think that most of these issues can be detected before the fact?
So I think with respect to trauma, as mentioned, trauma can be very debilitating because I use this example a lot. I may break a nail and it's no issue to me, but someone else could break a nail and it's like, oh my goodness, it's the end to end all. And I think we have to be conscious and aware of what other people go through. Typically when someone has experienced a traumatic, have gone through a traumatic experience, it may not be evident right away. However, that is why we as the awakened must raise our children in the way that they should go. And that means when we teach them the word of the Most High, they will have those things in their heart, and they'll be able to open up to us and talk to us and share with us when things are not right.
That's right.
And as caregivers, as parents, we have to look out for our children. We're supposed to develop their gifts, their interests, but we're also supposed to be able to identify when a behavior changes or when a pattern is different. And I think as adults, sometimes with our busy lives, we overlook that. But it's time out for that now. We have to really be conscious of our children's behavior.
And Ms. Holloway, wouldn't you think that would extend far from just the home into the community like it used to be in our neighborhoods?
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's a piece about accountability. We have to stop being so fearful of what someone is going to say. And you know, this is like a little slogan, if you see something, say something. And that's true. You know, everybody tries to uphold, you know, snitches get stitches, and, you know, it ain't my business. Yes, if it's another brown person you see that's getting hurt or being mistreated or abused.
Or mistreated.
Or, yeah, you need to say something. You need to say something because as a people, we are a nation of people. We are not black people. We are brown people. We are a nation of people, and we have to stand up for one another.
We are Yahusha.
We are Yahusha, and that is why crime, violence, and so many perpetual things are in the community because we don't want to stand up for one another.